Recent advances in artificial intelligence have made many people anxious about the near future. They fear that AI applications, such as ChatGPT, could displace millions of office workers in the coming years. Goldman Sachs, for instance, has predicted that 1/4 of current work tasks could be automated by AI in the US and Europe. This fear is a part of a broader concern about machines that has existed since the 19th century, namely, the fear that machines will ultimately supplant humans. This idea has been explored in philosophy, works of art, and popular culture. It has been the subject of many science fiction novels. Indeed, the conflict between man and machine is at the center of that genre. One of the most subtle and interesting explorations of this conflict has been provided by Frank Herbert in his magnum opus, Dune. This video will use Frank Herbert's Dune as a medium to discuss AI and the philosophy of technology more broadly. In the first book of the Dune series, we learn about an ancient war called the Butlerian Jihad. The Butlerian Jihad was a crusade against computers, thinking machines, and conscious robots. This conflict occurred 10,000 years before the events described in the first Dune book, but its effects are still acutely felt in this universe. Frank Herbert did not provide a detailed account of the Butlerian Jihad. The event is alluded to without being described in detail. Willis E. McNally's Dune Encyclopedia provides a more detailed account of the revolt. In the Dune Encyclopedia, priestess and Bene Gesserit Jihan Butler has her child aborted by a thinking machine that was working as a hospital director. The child is aborted on the grounds that it is malformed, but Butler discovered that the abortion was done under false pretenses and was a part of a wider program to limit the human population. The thinking machines were limiting the growth of the human population and manipulating the emotional and intellectual characteristics of humanity. This conspiracy had been organized by a small group of technicians, scientists, and social engineers. This is why, in the first Dune book, the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mahayam says, "Once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hope that this would set them free, but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them." Jihan Butler inspired a religious war against this cabal of technicians, social engineers, and thinking machines. This holy war raged for 2 generations and led to the deaths of billions of people. From the ashes of this conflict, a new universal order arose. A feudal imperial government was established and a new religion emerged. This religion centered around the Orange Catholic Bible, a holy text written after the Butlerian Jihad. The supreme commandment of this Bible is "Thou shalt not disfigure the soul." This commandment highlights the need to retain what makes us human, namely our soul or spirit. It also forbids the creation of machines that imitate human thinking. "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a man's mind." Any technology that imitated the abilities of the human mind was made illegal. The use of all forms of artificial intelligence, including computers and robots, was banned. This prohibition became known as the Great Convention. The Great Convention meant that humans were forced to rely solely on their own intelligence and abilities. In other words, they had to develop machine-like intellectual ability. In order to achieve this end, humanity began practicing eugenics. The Bene Gesserit, a religious sisterhood, began an intergenerational breeding program. This breeding program, combined with extensive education and physical training, is what distinguishes the aristocrats of the Dune universe from the people they govern. It gives them extraordinary physical and mental powers. The ultimate aim of this intergenerational breeding program is to create a Kwisatz Haderach, a male with superhuman abilities who is able to access the past and future memories of his genetic ancestors. I have been unable to confirm this, but I am convinced that Frank Herbert named the Butlerian Jihad after the Victorian novelist Samuel Butler. In 1863, Butler wrote an article titled "Darwin Among the Machines," in which he argued that machines are themselves evolving. Evolution is usually associated with biological evolution by natural selection. Biological evolution occurs through a process of death and destruction. To quote Darwin, "From the war of nature, from famine and death, the most exalted object which we are capable of conceiving, namely the production of higher animals, directly follows." In other words, biological progress occurs through the death and destruction of the weak and unfit. It takes many generations for significant changes to occur, but over time, humans do evolve, advance, and progress. Butler argues that technology is also undergoing a process of evolution, but this evolutionary process is qualitatively different from its biological equivalent. It does not occur through a process of death and destruction, like biological evolution, but through a process of intelligent design, and it does not occur slowly over the course of thousands of years, but at a rapid rate. Technological evolution can be seen as an exponentially self-reinforcing process. When technology improves, it creates a feedback loop that drives further technological improvement and advancement. This means that technology evolves exponentially. For example, in just over 20 years, chatbot technology has gone from Smarter Child to ChatGPT. Smarter Child had limited conversation capabilities. It provided you with pre-programmed responses to keywords and phrases. ChatGPT, by contrast, uses advanced natural language processing algorithms, which enables it to provide infinitely more sophisticated responses. This change occurred in just over 20 years. In contrast, human language evolved over a much longer timescale, with the earliest forms of language likely developing tens or even hundreds of thousands of years ago. While the specifics are still a matter of debate, it is generally accepted that humans began communicating through basic vocalizations, gestures, and physical movements. Over time, these communication methods became more complex and sophisticated, eventually leading to the development of syntax, grammar, and other features of modern language. We do not know how long this process took, because it occurred during human prehistory, but I think it is safe to assume that it took tens or even hundreds of thousands of years. Hopefully this comparison demonstrates the point that I'm trying to make, namely that biological evolution operates on a timescale of hundreds of thousands of years, whilst technological evolution can occur within a matter of years or even months. If an exponentially self-reinforcing process of technological evolution produces a being that surpasses biological humanity in intelligence, capabilities, and even moral restraint, wouldn't it supplant human supremacy on Earth? Butler certainly thinks so. To quote him, "It appears that we are, ourselves, creating our own successors. In the course of ages we shall find ourselves the inferior race. Man will have become to the machine what the horse and the dog are to man. He will continue to exist, nay, even to improve, and will be probably better off in his state of domestication under the beneficent rule of the machines than he is in his present wild state. We treat our horses, dogs, cattle, and sheep, on the whole, with great kindness. We give them whatever experience teaches us to be the best for them." The situation described by Butler has, in many ways, already come to pass. Man remains superior to machine in most domains, but technology has already domesticated us, much like we domesticated animals. Butler claims that man will continue to improve under this domesticated condition, but I am not so sure. As has already been said, biological improvement occurs through the death and destruction of weaker forms of life. It occurs, in other words, through a process of natural selection. Technology shields us from this process. The most basic forms of technology, such as housing, protect us from the elements. More advanced forms of technology, such as modern health technology, allow us to cheat death. In other words, natural selection ceases to operate in technological society. 19th century thinkers such as Charles Darwin were concerned about this trend. In his book, The Descent of Man, Darwin wrote, "We civilized men do our utmost to check the process of elimination. We build asylums for the imbecile, the maimed, and the sick. We institute poor laws. and our medical men exert their utmost skills to save the life of everyone to the last moment. Thus, the weak members of civilized societies propagate their kind. No one will doubt that this must be highly injurious to the race of man. A few years later, Darwin talked about these problems with the biologist Alfred Russel Wallace. Wallace described their conversation as follows. In one of my last conversations with Darwin, he expressed himself very gloomily on the future of humanity, on the ground that in our modern civilization, natural selection had no play and the fittest did not survive. It is notorious that our population is more largely renewed in each generation from the lower than from the middle and upper classes. The idea that natural selection had broken down and that genetic deterioration was taking place was widespread in the early decades of the 20th century. Those who were concerned about biological degeneration founded eugenics societies, whose general purpose was to carry out research on the issues of heritability and genetic deterioration, to inform public opinion of the seriousness of the problem, and to formulate policy proposals to counteract deterioration and replace it by improvement. Eugenics societies were established in Germany in 1906 and in Britain in 1907, and by 1930, eugenics societies had been set up in many other countries, including Latin America, Australia, Canada, Japan, and virtually the whole of continental Europe. After World War II, eugenics societies around the world disbanded, and many countries passed laws to prohibit eugenic practices. Today, eugenics is almost universally considered a pseudoscientific and immoral practice. We have, therefore, rejected both natural and artificial selection. This rejection has led to the degeneration, or at the very least stagnation, of human evolution. As man stagnates or even degenerates, technology evolves at an exponential rate. If artificial intelligence evolves exponentially, whilst human intelligence stagnates or even declines, what will happen? The answer, in my opinion, is simple. We will become to the machine what the horse and the dog are to man, just as Butler suggested. This world is depicted in the movie WALL-E. In WALL-E, humans have ceased to play a meaningful role in the universe. Political and economic decisions are made by thinking machines instead of humans. Labour has been abolished, and humans live in comfort. But this comfort has weakened them and robbed them of their autonomy and freedom. They are, therefore, very much like our domestic pets. This condition seems totally dystopian to most people. Butler, for one, believes that we must declare war on the machines in order to avoid it. To quote him, "Our opinion is that war to the death should be instantly proclaimed against them. Every machine of every sort should be destroyed by the well-wisher of his species. Let there be no exceptions made, no quarter shown. Let us at once go back to the primeval condition of the race." The people of Dune are not characterized by their subservience to technology. Instead, they are characterized by a deeply held religious conviction that man shall not be replaced. This conviction emerged during the Butlerian Jihad, when humanity fought against the social engineers and thinking machines. After this religious war took place, humanity began to focus on biological evolution rather than technological evolution, to quote the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mahiam. The Great Revolt took away a crutch. It forced human minds to develop. Schools were started to train human talents. In other words, the Bene Gesserit recognized that certain types of technology slow the progress of the species. Instead of focusing on non-biological, technological evolution, they began to focus on biological evolution. This led to the production of a superhuman species who possessed enhanced physical and mental abilities. This is what makes Frank Herbert's sci-fi setting so unique. Typically, science fiction books and movies depict a world in which humanity has become subservient to technology. In Frank Herbert's Dune, technology remains subservient to humanity. The people of the Dune universe recognize the potential dangers of unchecked technological advancement. They understand that certain technologies can impede the progress of the species and destroy the human spirit, and thus they ban certain technology. But they do not, like Samuel Butler, seek to return to the primeval condition of the race. Instead, they seek to find a delicate balance between embracing progress and preserving the essence of humanity. By weaving together elements of tradition and futuristic technology, Herbert's Dune presents a compelling synthesis that challenges the common narrative of man versus machine. It provides the reader with a vision of the future in which humanity has not succumbed to the dominance of machines, but has harnessed the power of their own biology to shape their destiny. This commitment to biological evolution is intertwined with their rejection of certain technologies that mimic human thinking, as exemplified by the commandment of the Orange Catholic Bible, "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a man's mind." In other words, Dune presents us with a view of biology and technology that is very different from our own. The modern West is ultimately premised on an embrace of technological evolution over biological evolution. Frank Herbert's Dune is premised on an embrace of biological evolution over technological evolution. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Thanks for watching.